on guided by spirit, right? And just recently I was talking with Marilyn, and we were talking about that when we come together in a space, there is a particular energy we bring to the space. And it's not that that energy just stays there for the moment that we're there, it actually lingers. And so when we come into the sanctuary Sunday after Sunday, and we do the practices that Kaplaya was singing about, like chanting, singing and meditation and prayer and affirmation, then that energy is here already. So every time we step in, we can go a little deeper. We are actually supported by the energy we have been building, that has been building here over years. And having the topic, having a yearly topic, like guided by spirit, also allows us to go deeper over time. It's like, it's a focus, it's a way in to us experiencing our divine nature that is always present, but we tend to forget. So we get to come here and practice remembrance. And so we took the aspect of guided by spirit through different lenses. It's like we have talked about courage, and we have talked about gratitude, and we have talked about compassion, and this month we're talking about joy. So again, it's a way in to experience our own divinity, and also explores like what gets in the way of us experiencing our divinity. The remembering and forgetting is really part of life. It's our journey. And what we're, at least for me, what I'm intending to do is that I can remember more easily. So today I want to start with a poem by Hafiz, and just to ground us in our nature of joy. And that means that I need to find it. Here we go. All right, take a deep breath. And close your eyes, if you're comfortable doing so. And I will be reading the poem twice, so the first time you just can get familiar with it, and then just let it sink in a little bit more the second time. So it's a poem by Hafiz, as it was rendered by Daniel Ladinsky. I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy, my heart too heavy for me to remember that I've been called to dance, the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up and to lift others up. Oh, sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul, that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious. Take another deep breath. I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy, my heart is too heavy for me to remember that I've been called to dance, the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul, that we might dance and that our dancing might be contagious. And take another deep breath and open your eyes. I don't know what the title is, but the first line is, I sometimes forget, so you will be able to find it. So Hafiz is reminding us that we are made for joy. He says, I was created for joy. I've been called to dance the sacred dance of life. What we believe in, what we're saying over and over again in service, it's like the divine is joy, and we are expressions of the divine. Therefore, the joy is right within us, if we experience it or not. you know, and he says, I sometimes forget. Now we have to realize what I said earlier, it's like, it's a, you know, it's the wave of life almost. Like we remember, we forget, we get busy, then we remember again. We go like, how could I forget? Because it's so beautiful. And then, you know, sometimes the next minute, we forget. But Hafiz is not saying I am broken. He is not saying there's something wrong with me that I forget. He's actually very gentle. I sometimes forget, you know? And I forget because my heart is too heavy for me to remember, or my mind is too busy. So when I was reading this poem and I was thinking about joy, I go like, what has helped me over time to come back to that joy, to come back to that experience of the divine within myself? And one of the things that has been really helpful is actually the Enneagram. And some of you might be familiar with it, some of you might not, some of you might like it, some of you might, you know, not want to do much with it. And I just want to tell you a little story why I got interested in it. Because I had heard about it years ago and I went like, oh, that's just like another personality test and I don't want to be boxed in and, you know, then I have to live with that forever, forget it. And then a few years ago, a good friend of mine who is a coach, she says to me, we're having this conversation, she says to me, you know, the Enneagram is really my spiritual path. I mean, respecting her, that really made me curious. It's like, what do you mean? And she explained, first of all, what I learned is that the Enneagram wasn't developed as a personality test. The Enneagram was developed in a spiritual community, and the idea was to discover what might get in our way to actually experience the divine within ourselves. And what they discovered is like, you know, there's certain patterns that seem to show up over and over again, so it was just helpful to notice. And she said, like, with working with that, it brought her closer to the divine because she could see the obstacles that was working for her, that were, you know, blocking her. So let me give a very concrete example how it has worked for me. So the type of, you know, that I am in the Enneagram, I tend to focus on what is missing. And, you know, it's like when I learned about my type, it was really humbling because I literally got to see all my patterns. It's like, oh my God, yes, I do that, and I do that, you know. And so one of the things was I can get really focused on what is missing. And I just had a recent experience with that. It's like the holiday season can actually be quite stressful for me. And so much so that literally months before I can go like, it's coming again. You know, how will I go through this year? What will it bring me? Or will it be very challenging? And over the years, I've learned to work with it. You know, what I do is like I have contemplated what is meaningful to me. And it's like, how can I make the holiday season meaningful to me? And then, you know, usually I put that in place, but the stress is still there. So it's just recognizing that the stress is there. So this year it has been really great. You know, the holiday season was fantastic, and it's like I've been connecting with friends, with old friends, with new friends. I've been going to events that were meaningful to me, and I've been feeling very full. About a week before Christmas, I got clear on what was happening for me on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. Now you have to realize the holiday season is about a month and a half for me. You know, it's like it starts like right before Thanksgiving, it ends like right after New Year's, right? So there's a month and a half of events and connections that I truly enjoy. And then I get clear on what my schedule is for Christmas and Christmas Eve. Family will be coming over to my place. We'll have a good time that night. They actually will be staying over, so the next morning we all wake up together. We'll make breakfast, and then I actually go to a somatic movement class that I really love, and then I'll have potluck with my friends there, and then I'll come home. Very rich, right? where my mind goes is, then I come home and nobody is there. And it's Christmas Day. And the indoctrination of what Christmas should look like pops right up in my mind. Christmas Day should be about, you know, having a big Christmas tree and loads of family around, a lot of food, loads of presents. You know, it's like there should be laughter, and it goes on till late at night, and then your house is a mess and you need to clean it up, and that is when you have a successful Christmas. You know, maybe that's not even particularly what I want, or maybe it's not realistic. So in my schedule, and I was counting it, it's like the nice thing was, it's like I really dropped into it. My whole body freaked out. And still part of me could observe what was happening. And so I was counting the hours. So in a month and a half, filled with good events and connections and feeling really loved, there were 7 hours. In a month and a half, there were 7 hours I would be by myself. I could have taken it as, wow, isn't that wonderful? I have some downtime. I just can be home and reading my book I really love and be with my cat and light some candles and have a good time. And then the next day I'm ready to go again. But that's not what my mind did. What my mind did is like something is missing. So I was happy that I freaked out a week before, because actually on Christmas Day I was fine, because I could just look at it. Right? But that underlying pattern of focusing on that something was missing could have really gotten in my way. Right? So what I want to do today in relation to joy, I want to use the Enneagram to see, it's like, what might get in our way and what can we do? How can we turn that around? How can we work with that? There is a Kuwaiti-born spiritual leader, Hamid Ali, who has used the Enneagram as not as personality types, but more as aspects of God, which is really nice. So, for example, you know, type 1, he sees it as joy as divine order. Type 2 is joy as divine love, or joy as divine life. So that's where I'm coming from, right? Because the divine is expressing in different ways. There are all these facets, again, that we can access. And sometimes we can relate more to one facet than another, or sometimes we go overboard in a facet and it starts to block us. So that is what we're exploring today. And what I want you to do is just listen and note when something hits you. And it might be that you go like, oh, but that's not me. And if you have a really strong reaction like, that's not me, I would take a second look, you know, because we don't always like what we see. So the first one is joy as divine order. And how that can show up is that, you know, we like order in our lives, and it is a really good thing. It's like, it is a divine quality. It opens us up to the divine energy. It opens us up to joy. But where it can get extreme is when we become perfectionists. When it is like we have to follow the rules, and if we don't follow the rules, then something is wrong. If I don't follow the rules, if I don't do it perfect, then I'm not worthy of joy. Right? That is when we go overboard. While divine order can be really supportive, the being really stuck on rules is not helpful. Now, how you can turn that around is to relax into Spirit's perfection. Can I see the perfect in the imperfect? Can I be open to what comes forth? And can I allow joy to arise even when it might not seem perfect to me? Right? I think there's some recognition of this. The second one is divine love. And for a person who's really focused on divine love, and I, by the way, want to say, is like you might, relate to one or more. We have all of these in our being, right? Because they're facets of the divine. So we have all of them. It's just that some can be stronger than others in our lives. So divine love. Now, for a person who can be very focused on divine love, it can show up as really wanting to help somebody. But where it gets extreme is they only can experience joy when they can help somebody, even if the other person doesn't want to be helped. A client of mine said one time, somebody had said to her, "Your need to help me doesn't match my need to be helped." Suzanne Stabile, who is very versed in the Enneagram, she says she is this type and she's always helping people and really going outside of herself. And it has a lot to do with worthiness. I have to help people. And she tells this story, which is hilarious to me. She was in a grocery store and there's a woman looking for cereal. And she's at the same aisle and the woman just makes a comment. It's like, wow, there's so many kinds of cereal, it's almost hard to choose. And Suzanne Stabile says he takes a box of cereal off the of the rack and goes like, my mom really likes this, you will like this too, and puts it in the woman's cart. And, they go on shopping and she sees the woman later, with her cart, and that box of cereal was no longer in her cart, there was another box of cereal. But that is the extreme of it. It's like so wanting to help. So what is really important when you notice that that is what come up for you is that you affirm that you're inherently worthy. That you actually receiving love helps another person. That it's not always about giving. And that you are inherently worthy of love. And that you are inherently worthy to experience joy. That you experiencing joy doesn't always depend on helping another person. The next one is divine life. And for this person, it might be, I only can experience joy when I'm really productive. I always have to be productive. I always have to do something on the outside. I cannot just be. I'm only worthy when I'm productive. Ha, that was a hand. And that really can get in the way because we don't come back to ourselves. Again, it's like it's so outside focus of where the joy comes from. Instead of saying, hey, my presence alone is enough. Somebody said to me once, he said is the sun concerned about what people think? I go like, no. He says no, the sun is just the sun and it shines. And people can bathe in the sun or not. But the sun is not going outside of itself to be productive. It's just being itself. Right? So I can experience joy just being myself. The fourth one is divine beauty. And that is actually what I just spoke about with it's like that is the type I am. And it's like, the idea that something is missing. And what I want to say too is like when we have these patterns, even when we are aware of them, that doesn't mean that they're not lingering. I've been aware of it. But what is helping me by recognizing it as has happened this holiday season, that when I see I drop into it, I go like, oh, there I go. And my friend I talked to, she's the same type as I am, so we just crack up. It's like, oh yeah, there we go again. We're so focused on what is missing, but that is not the truth, right? So, for that type, it's like nothing essential is missing. It's just being itself. Right? So I can experience joy just being myself. The fifth one is divine And I would literally practice that. That sometimes I was really stressed out, and I tell myself, okay, the belief is really arising that something is missing, but that is not the truth. That is just a false belief I'm having. And it really helps me to get through. The next type is divine wisdom. And for this type, it's really important to understand what life is about, how certain things work, but it can become debilitating because the person who dives into that might be the feeling of, I don't know enough yet. I cannot participate in life because I need to know a little bit more before I can participate. So there is no participation. Life becomes overwhelming because, again, there is some perfectionism in it. It's like I need to have the full wisdom. I need to fully embrace it before I actually can step out. And so it's the same with joy. It's like I cannot be joyful, I cannot be happy unless I truly understand everything. And that is not true. Wisdom actually comes through participating in life. Joy comes through participation in life. The next one is faith, divine faith, joy through divine faith. And for this, it's like when it goes to the extreme, it's like it's usually people are very fearful. They anticipate what might be coming, but the anticipation is like, oh, this might be going wrong or that might be going wrong. So the fear is keeping them from actually taking the next step. And so the practice of faith, when I'm so fearful, and especially, I think, the world has had a lot going on for a very long time, but when we become aware of what is going on, I can be very fearful, and the fear contracts me. So if I can step into faith, that knowing that when I show up, I will be supported from within. I can't even say that things will be okay, because things happen in life that we might not be happy about. But in the meantime, I can step into that faith and connect with the divine, and I still can experience joy. And when we're having a hard time or when we feel challenged, it's actually really important that we experience that joy, that we tap into that. Faith is not that I just sit back and don't do anything. Faith is knowing that I will be guided what my next step is, and that I can do it joyfully no matter what is going on the outside. That me doing it joyfully doesn't take away from somebody else's joy. It just adds to their well-being. The next one is divine possibility. When that goes to the extreme, is that a person thinks they can only experience joy when they have new possibilities, when they have new experiences. So they're really on the surface, they're never really going deep. Because it's that new shiny thing that they think is what the experience of joy is, the feeling they get when they have the new shiny thing. But ultimately that is not so. So it's understanding. It's like, yeah, new things are very exciting, and often it has a lot of good energy that we can go with. And then there is the depth. And when we go into the depth of something, we really, at least in my experience, that's when I come to that joy that is so solid and that people cannot take away. The next one is divine power, and that is for people, who think they have to control everything. For things to go right, I have to control everything. Everything has to be just right, which is different than the first one, right, when we talked about divine order. Divine order is about rules. Divine power is like, I'm speaking my word and I want it a particular way. And unless it goes a particular way, I cannot be joyful. So when we step into the extreme of power or of control, it's like learning that joy really comes when we're open. You know, that we're not giving up our power, but openness actually has a lot of power. When I can be open and relaxed, I am more powerful than when I try to control things. And then the last one is divine peace. And for this one, it is like when the extreme comes up is that people, it's like somebody said to me, I'd rather die than having conflict. I will run away from conflict as fast as I can. I cannot handle it. I don't even want to try. And that is, you know, conflict happens in the world. And when I am centered, when I'm centered within myself, when I can tap into my own joy, when conflict happens, and I can just let it be, you know, and just take care of myself, then it's amazing what can come out of it. You know, I've seen it where I'm not in a hurry about resolving the conflict, but I just give it space. Can I just give it space? Can I just breathe into it? And in the meantime, take very good care of myself. And then I might have the next conversation with the person and there's an opening. And then we relate again with each other in a peaceful manner, in a productive manner. But what I also know is that we have gone deeper and that there is greater trust because there was the openness. You know, neither one of us ran away from it. So joy as divine order, as divine love, as divine life, as divine beauty, as divine wisdom, as faith, as possibility, as power, as peace. So many facets of the divine, so many facets, so many ways to tap into that joy that is already within us. And when we do that, then we're also clear on our purpose in life. Then we also know which step to take. And then we can take the next step being in that joy. Then we can be radiant. And then we can inspire others, like what Hafiz said so beautifully. He says, free my soul that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious. Thank you.